and welcome to a special Old Man Chimes episode. So throughout my time looking at the hardcore DVDs, I ended up watching the first 4 official Faces of Death films, the main 4, the ones that people talk about when they think of Faces of Death. And what I decided to do was get those 4 videos and combine them into one big episode for you guys, so that if you want to know my opinion on the 4 Faces of Death, it's all in one convenient package for you. Not an easy series to sit through. It's got its ups, it's got its downs, and yeah, controversial, I might say. A very controversial set of films. So, without further ado, please enjoy the 4 Faces of Death. Hey up. Once again, we're moving away from the Millennium trash this episode, and instead we're looking at something a little more controversial, a little more notorious, I guess. A film that any fan of extreme horror will surely have heard of. We're looking at Faces of Death. This is a 1978 Mondo horror film directed by John Alan Schwartz, going under the name Conan Leclerc and Alan Black. Looking at this guy's career, it looks like this is kind of his career. He directed this and the 5 other films in this series that followed. That's right, there are 6 Faces of Death films. The film stars Michael Carr, and that's about it for actors. Michael Carr only really being in this, he's not done loads. The rest of the people who appear in this are either people who are involved in reenactments and aren't credited, or just stock footage of people, really. So this was banned across the world in various countries, banned in the UK as a video nasty, and was only unbanned in Germany in 2022. I've seen this a few times as a teenager, but it's been years since I've looked at it. So who knows if it's going to be good or bad, I'm not entirely sure. I can't really remember much of it either, so let's see if it's any good, shall we? And a little bit of warning on this episode. I'm not going to be able to show many clips of this. For those who've seen it, you probably know why. So yeah, might be a little light on clips.
Each year, thousands head to a higher altitude to escape the smog. Creatures that live in this terrain will often take advantage of the innocent vacationer.
Channel 9 Action News. I'm here today with Mrs. Ellis. Mrs. Ellis, as well as several other area residents, are having problems with what they consider to be a menace.
So this film doesn't really follow a traditional narrative structure. The form of it is that we are looking through archive footage of death curated by the fictional Dr. Gross, and he's taking us by narrating through this archival footage, showing us depictions of animal attacks, ritualistic killings, murder, plane crashes, and so on, just all sorts of different ways to die, the many faces of death, I guess. And sometimes it works and sometimes it kind of doesn't. There are certain sections that delve nicely into certain bits and have a look at it, and it sticks around for a relatively decent amount of time. But then on the other hand, you've got parts that feel very glossed over and you're like, wait, I wanted to know more about that, and then it's gone. But then on the other side, you get parts that are just on for far too long. The whole alligator stuff just went on and on. But I guess it's what you find interesting as well. In the UK, we don't really have alligators or anything like that, so there's no real threat or danger, and it's not really a relatable thing for us, so watching it can get a little tedious, especially when it's people just slowly looking for them in a swamp. But people who see that more often might be more affected by it. I don't know. It's a mixed bag, really. I feel like, though, maybe there's a bit of intention behind that as well, because it isn't meant to be, here's, like, 10 minutes on this, 10 minutes on this, 10 minutes on this. It's meant to be, I have an archive of rare footage and we're flicking through it. Some might be glossed over because I don't have much footage, some might not be. I guess maybe there's an intent behind it. This film also comes in at 1 hour and 42 minutes, making it, I think, the longest film we've covered in this collection yet. And it's a little too long for what it is, in my opinion. This would have made a nice 80-minute film. But there's only so much you can see before the shock value dissipates, the intrigue dissipates, because it can be quite dry at times as well. So, yeah, bit of a mixed bag, really. But I'd say it is on the side of good, because it is quite interesting for what it's doing.
Contribution to the world of disease. This blood-sucking creature is one of the many carriers responsible for rabies.
My name is Francois Jardin. I'm a Harold assassin.
In my name shall they cast out devils. They shall speak with new tongues. They shall take up serpents, and if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them.
So our only character in this is the Dr. Gross, who is sort of taking us through the footage. He's pretty good, to be honest. I quite liked his voice, works well with narration. He's quite matter-of-fact for a chunk of it, but then he also dips into opinions, occasionally having sort of like a funny little insight. And I think it worked quite well. It flowed quite nicely. He has an interesting voice, and yeah, pretty good, I'd say. So this film's main purpose is to shock. I think it's pretty much gone on record that that was the case. And you can kind of tell this with it sort of glossing over some aspects and being a little shallow in how it explores certain topics, I guess. Especially towards the back end of this film, where it feels like it's almost just reading from a list of different ways to die and showing very small interspersed clips. As I said, it'd be nice to have a little more explanation for some things, but it is here to shock, and I don't know if sometimes it kind of pretends that it's trying to do a little more, but I think it's quite obvious of what it is trying to do. It also tries to put in these little moments of potentially having some form of agenda. As I said, Dr. Gross's narration sometimes interjects with little opinions, and this is when you're watching something that's a documentary, any sort of opinion is usually included to try and sway the audience into thinking in a certain way. And we have stuff like the animal cruelty being bad, littering killing the planet, and sort of societal corruption leading to serial killers and stuff like that. And these little opinions are just sort of interspersed throughout. But as I said, some of it is quite shallow, and it feels like they're almost doing it as a sort of get out clause, as a sort of, look, we're trying to do something a little more deep with more of a message. But they're not, are they? They are. It's like they're wearing that as a disguise to be like, look, that there's a message here, there's something we're trying to push. Really, you're just trying to shock us, though. We know this, we can tell, because these opinions, again, are just sort of glossed over. Littering's bad, it's killing the planet, move on, you know. I don't hate it. I think it's because it's trying to almost disguise itself as a real documentary, I guess. So it's using some of these persuasion techniques to sort of make us believe a little bit more. It's sort of part of the bravado, part of the mystique of it all, I guess. But it's pretty clear that it's here to shock. Speaking of the shocking moments, there is a ton of animal cruelty in this, and it's a rough set, especially the overly long slaughterhouse section towards the beginning. Not easy to sit through. And then obviously there's archival footage of things like the Holocaust, never easy to watch, and a woman who gets run over, like just after being run over, and it's real footage of her after being run over. And yeah, this is the sort of stuff that put it on the map, though, as being a difficult, intense, extreme film, I guess. And you know, it's still effective in some parts. It is quite effective. It's a hard one to talk about how it's been made, because it is, as I said, it is trying to come across as archival footage. So it's quite quick and choppy with the editing, and it's not meant to flow smoothly. It's meant to be a little jarring. I will say though that I did really like the opening piece of music, because it sounds like Throbbing Gristle's Journey Through a Body, which is a great album. But I wasn't keen on a lot of the juxtaposing music, because again, it's almost trying to make light in some ways, and I know some of the footage isn't real. It's not all real footage. Some of it is faked and reenacted, but you're trying to display yourself as real, 100% real, I guess. And every time you add in this, it adds juxtaposing sort of happy jazz music, or like a more upbeat. Vivaldi's Four Seasons, I think's in it, just sort of something quite upbeat while you're seeing horrible images. And I know it's trying to do it to shock and to juxtapose, but it almost feels like it's making light of certain things, and I don't really think it worked all as intended. Not for me anyway. It sort of took me out and made me realise, oh yeah, we're watching something that has a lot of fake moments in it. I did quite like the ending credits though, the sort of happy music with wildlife shots to try and calm you down afterwards. I did quite like that. I thought that was funny.
If nature doesn't destroy the environment, it is very possible that the human being will. If I can get closer to God by eating brains, why not?
So let's talk about what's real and what's not real in this. So apparently about 60% of this film is real footage. And yeah, you know what? I can see that, because this film isn't just death, 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 death. There's build-up for certain bits, and you can see how it might be footage from the news, or footage from a hospital, like for training purposes, or all sorts of stuff like that, really, like archival footage. You can see that. If there's a death that's real in this, it's usually from quite far away, like somebody jumping off a building or something like that. Or if you see a death up close, it's faked. And quite laughably so a lot of the time. There are some scenes in this where the acting is just absolutely awful. And it was quite interesting playing the spot the fake clip. It's like, oh, the electric chair, very fake, you know. Apparently the most real stuff in this, there's a surfer who gets washed up on a beach, and apparently the crew was just in the area at the time and managed to capture that. And then there's the aforementioned woman post getting run over, which, yeah, pretty real. Some of the faked stuff that's quite notorious is the monkey brains eating scene, the snake cult, which the director is actually the head of the cult acting in that, the electric chair, as I already said, and there's plenty more that are faked. And yeah, as I said, you can kind of tell for the most part. The monkey brain bit works pretty well though. Apparently that's cauliflower covered in fake theatre blood that had apparently gone slightly rotten because it had been left in the heat for a while. So the reactions of the people eating the cauliflower brains is quite real because it's a bit rotten. I quite liked that, and you know what, it plays quite well, to be honest. So this version is a cut version. It is missing about 2 minutes of footage. Stuff we're missing is dogfights and a monkey getting beaten. Animal cruelty stuff, of course. Fine. But apparently the dogfighting bit was faked. It was just 2 dogs mating covered in fake blood. But I don't know, I haven't seen it. But yeah, uncut version in this country. I don't actually think there has been an official uncut release of this in this country. Lastly, before we move on, this film is slated to have a reboot either this year or next year. I'm guessing next year at this point. How the hell do you reboot this film? It makes very little sense to me. Like, this sort of thing now has sort of become a YouTube video type thing, hasn't it, really? Like, the need to see the real and the fucked up and stuff like that, it's sort of been delegated to niche YouTube channels, I guess. How do you reboot this? Well, apparently they're rebooting it with a narrative structure and with stars acting in it. Barbie Ferreri, I think her name is, from Euphoria, is set to be in it, and Charlie XCX of the Brat album that was popular this year. She's set to star in this thing, which, I don't know, it's kind of baffling me even now, even though I knew this and I wrote it in the script this is happening. Saying it aloud is kind of baffling. What are they going to do with it then, you might be wondering? Are they just going to show more footage from like wars and stuff? No, narrative structure, and the narrative is the most generic thing you've ever heard. People find snuff on YouTube. It's been done a million times. Why call it Faces of Death? It might as well be called 8mm. Like, it's one of the most generic things you can possibly do these days. And I'm guessing it's going to have dark web shit in it. And why call it Faces of Death? Why link it to this? I don't know. It makes no sense. Seems like a cash grab. I mean, I'm not expecting to enjoy it at all, but I'll probably watch it, let's be fair.
I'm Dr. Francis Gross. I work as a pathologist. No.
The country of Africa has its own code of laws that expose another face.
Okay, let's look at this print then. So this is the childhood DVD that I had of this film. It's exactly the same, and it's kind of how I remember it as well. When I was thinking back to what is this film like, I've just got a sort of blurry, grainy, ghosting image VHS rip in my head. And that's exactly what we get here. It's not a great print, but I'm not gonna lie, it does add to the mood of this. It makes it feel like something you shouldn't be watching, dirty and grimy. There's some audio issues in this as well. There was a really loud hum for a little while. And then some of my other issues might fall into just the editing of the thing and the cut of the thing. It's not a perfect print, but it kind of works for this. You don't really want to watch this 4K cleaned up, do you? You want to watch this looking like you found it in a bin and it's got mouldy and dirty and something you shouldn't be watching. On the disc, we don't get too much of anything really. We get the film, we get chapter select, and we get hardcore trailers. That's your lot. Very, very little on this disc. Not even a trailer for this film. Not great. Okay then, time for the case. I really love the design on this, with the eyes peering from the dark. And then as the sequels get released, they added a facial feature to each one, and it's a really cool effect. It's very striking and memorable. The claim of being banned in 46 countries is completely inaccurate. It was used a lot in the DVD marketing. Yeah, it's not real. The warning at the bottom really sells it. I remember being a teenager buying this, and it really does feel like something you've been forbidden from seeing. The back of the case is interesting too, just having this hard to make out list of what features in the film. Again, very effective. It's a very minimalist design and it just works so well. All the information's correct, spelling error free, and a correct runtime too. Some really nice packaging on this one. And on the inside we get another catalogue for more hardcore releases. We've seen this one a few times. Overall then, I quite liked this one. It's not enjoyable, but it's not really meant to be. I tell you what it reminds me of, it's sort of like the 70s equivalent to one of those YouTube videos that's like, the top 10 darkest videos I found online. It's that sort of thing, it's just an old, original equivalent to it. And as someone like me who's quite a fan of extreme cinema, it's a very fascinating piece of history. A curiosity piece, if you will. Mixing like uncomfortable real footage with some slightly campy over the top faked footage, but there's also some not too bad real faked footage as well. Some stuff that's kind of passable, I guess, that makes you question is that real, is that fake? It's a piece of history, I guess. It is not going to be for everyone 100%. Only go into this if there's been something in this video that's made you go, that's interesting. Or if you're a fan of extreme cinema, I'd recommend it. If not, it's probably not going to be for you. It does have its problems. It's a bit overly long at points. Some points are sort of glossed over. But, I don't know. For me, there's a mystique to it that draws me to it every now and then. I don't know if it's because I watched it growing up, I knew about it growing up, there was a mystique to it then as well. I don't know, the history with it maybe. Or if it's just well done in that regard, I don't know. But there is some sort of mystique. And if you're drawn in by the mystique too, it's probably worth checking out. As for releases of this film, there aren't too many in this country, unfortunately. This is kind of your lot as far as DVDs go, and while the picture quality isn't great, it doesn't hinder the film too much. It kind of works in its favour almost, giving it a grotty, grimy feel. There's not much special feature-wise on this, it's pretty much just the film, but it's not the worst, it's functional. There's also a US Blu-ray from Gorgon Video, and this one looks a bit nicer. It's a remaster, it's fully uncut. I think it's got some really interesting audio commentary on it that goes through what's real and what's fake with the director, and then there's also a documentary on the disc as well, so that seems like a pretty good way to go, but it is an import. Now, either way of getting this film in this country is kind of expensive as well. Either way, you're going to be paying through the nose for it. I was lucky, I got this as a kid, probably about £6 or something from CEX. It's going for 25 quid plus these days, and then the import for the Blu-ray is about 30, so it depends what you want to pay for it really. It's a difficult one to recommend purchasing, I guess, but if you are in the market, those are your options. So, a fascinating piece of extreme cinema history, this episode, and a series that we are going to go back to again at some point in the near future, as Hardcore put out the second, third and fourth film in the franchise. Hey up. Back to the world of depravity and sleazy grot this episode as we take a look at Faces of Death 2. This is the 1981 Mondo sequel to the 1978 original, again directed by John Alan Schwartz and again starring Michael Carr as Dr. Gross. This is the copy that I had as a teenager, and I have seen it before, although I can't really remember much about it outside of the odd snippet here and there. And this is as far as I've ever got with the Faces of Death series. So the other two in the collection are going to be completely new to me. Not that I can really remember much about this anyway, to be honest. We will be referring back to the original quite a bit in this, which I did review recently on my channel. If you haven't seen my review of the original Faces of Death, I would strongly suggest checking that one out before watching this, as there's probably going to be quite a bit of comparison in this video, as you can imagine. So I'll put a link to it, a link should have popped up by now for it, so you can check that out. Lastly as well, before we move on, this is a Faces of Death film, so the clips are going to be a little sparse, so I do apologise for that. I'll try my best to show stuff where I can, but there's not going to be a hell of a lot of this film that I can show. So I do apologise. But anyway, let's crack on, shall we?
If you disagree with me, I'll prove my point. After the initial flash, the soldiers were instructed to face the mushroom cloud. They would later report a sensation of great heat, much like... When the warmth of springtime begins to melt the snow...
Much like the first film, this doesn't have much structure to it. Again, it's trying to emulate delving into the archives that Dr. Gross has collected of various scenes of death and suffering from around the world. In this instalment, we get boxing, stunts gone wrong, napalm, leprosy, animal slaughtering and testing, firing squads, and a whole lot more lovely images that you just can't wait to see. All narrated over by the good doctor himself, Dr. Gross. It's more of the same. It's more of the same. I felt that this one was a little tighter with its pacing, which is good and bad. We'll get into that a bit later on. It only comes in at 76 minutes, this one though, so it's a much brisker watch, which is definitely a positive, I'd say. It doesn't really have much time to completely overstay its welcome. Tonally though, it's a little different, but yeah, it's basically Faces of Death DLC.
The air quality has become so severe that the cleansing winds of North America are now contaminated. And what price will the next generation have to pay? Because of its superior intelligence, the Dolphin has been trained to perform various tricks in marine parks all over the world.
Dr. Gross's voice work is a little less quippy and a little more matter-of-fact in this one compared to the original. It still works, he's still got a good voice for the narration and such, but it does lead to this feeling a little drier, I guess, than the first one. We also get the return of the messages of the film. You know, it's very anti-littering, anti-pollution, animal testing and stuff like that. So it is trying to shove some sort of agenda, and again, it does feel a little disingenuous with this being a shock film. It's like it's trying to do it, it's trying to have its cake and eat it too, isn't it, with this? But yeah, it makes its return here. I said that this film had a quicker pace, and it definitely does, because within the first 12 minutes Dr. Gross had already covered 10 topics. It's very rapid fire, and it kind of glosses over some things. Now, on the one hand, you could say, well, that's good, because I don't have to sit with these horrible ideas and things for much time. But on the other hand, it's like, if you're going to just rush past it that fast, why even bring it up in the first place? I don't know, there's a lot of this film that it feels just sort of slapped together. Here's this, and it's like, chill the fuck out a minute and let me just absorb some of this. On the other hand though, we do have some scenes that are sort of played out a little longer, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here. The boxing section is quite long, the stuntman section goes on for a bit. And what's weird about that is, there's 3 topics in the stuntman section, there's 3 guys that it focuses on. Only one of them dies, and the other 2, I don't know, they just get a little injured, and it's like, why are we focusing on these other 2? It feels like it's padding it out a little bit. And lastly, it focuses quite a lot on the last section with the firing squad executions. We get to see the trial beforehand and stuff, and it's a little interesting, I'm not going to lie, it can be quite interesting. But that's how we play this film out. Gone is the nice nature shots and chipper music, and instead we're just left with slow motion footage post-execution. I think that sets the tone for this, and that leads me nicely into this next bit. I don't know if it was the footage used, the brisk pace of it all, the more matter-of-fact nature of it, or some sort of combination of all of it. But I found this film a lot more upsetting to watch than the original. It's harder to pick out the fake stuff with the real stuff, and it just feels a lot sadder. I don't know, it does show some pretty horrific stuff as well. There's some dead kids in it and stuff like that. I don't know. It's, in some ways it's better than the first film, and in some ways it's worse, I'd say. It's shorter, it's brisker, it's more shocking in parts, I guess. It's more shocking in parts, but it's also not as shocking because it's a sequel and we've seen the first one. So we kind of know what we're getting into, we kind of understand it. But some of the stuff it shows is a little more like, oof, my god, what the fuck are we seeing here? And also, again, it is just sort of slapped together. It feels more like an afterthought in parts. It's a really mixed bag, and it's difficult to talk about this one.
A ramp-to-ramp jump with his pickup truck covering a distance of 98 feet.
Boxing is a tough racket. It's very tough. 3 minutes in the ring of actual fighting is much more difficult than 2 weeks of hard training.
So this is a cut version of this film. Apparently there are 3 scenes missing. And yeah, reading about them on the BBFC website, I'm fine with that. Don't need to see them really. So, I said earlier that this film feels like it has more real footage in it. Now, I've tried doing research online. There's not as much information about this one than there is the first one, knocking about online. I'd have to guess that most of this is real footage. I found that the PCP shootout was definitely fake, and yeah, of course, the acting is shit in this bit. You can kind of tell from the get-go that that bit's faked. And I also think, I haven't read this online, but I also think, I don't believe the head in the jar guy. Now, he may believe that it's a real head in a jar, but I have my suspicions that he got scammed. I might be completely wrong about that, but I don't know. I didn't really believe that one. I might be wrong. I've never seen a real head in a jar, so what do I know? I said in my last Faces of Death review that 60% of the original Faces of Death was real footage. Now, I've had quite a few comments saying, no, most of it's fake. Most of the deaths are fake, but the deaths only make up about 20 to 25% of the film. The rest of the film is just real footage. Nothing's happening in it, it's not death scenes, it's just boring stuff, but it is real footage, and that's how they get away with saying that most of it is real. One thing that's heavily missing from Faces of Death 2 is sort of like the lighter, the sillier, wackier moments. The first one had things like the snake cult and the Satanists and stuff like that. Faces of Death 2 doesn't really have anything like that. The wackiest is probably the stunt stuff, and it's not that over the top. The rest of it is just like war crimes and illnesses, and it's heavy. It's very, very heavy. Lastly, I'm going to mention the trailer. There's a trailer for this film on the disc, and I was kind of interested, how are they going to advertise this film? And, well, they do it with a very campy opening and then a Faces of Death song. It's not really advertising this film, though. It looks like it's a trailer. I can't remember the name of the company. It's like Gorgon, I think. It looks like it's a trailer for the Faces of Death series as a whole, because there's clips from the first one, and there's clips I hadn't seen before, so I'm guessing they're from the third and fourth one. But it made me chuckle, and I'm probably going to be using it for clips, because it's hard to show clips from this film.
Together, let us gaze into the many faces of death.
Faces of death all around me. Faces of death, faces of death, faces of death all around me.
Okay, time for the print. It's kind of what you'd expect. It's not too dissimilar to the first Faces of Death. It's in 4:3 and it's a little grainy at points. I noticed a VHS flicker at one instance as well. Also, the audio's a little worse here. The past two that I've talked about, the audio's sort of distorted. It's gone a little, it like peaks. And it does do it, it's not a lot in here, it doesn't ruin the film or anything, but it can be a little noticeable during some of the narration scenes. Again though, the low quality of these, it does kind of add to the experience. It does make it feel like you're watching something that you found at the side of the road. which I think is what it wants. I don't think you'd want a cleaned up Blu-ray version of it all. And on the disc, usual stuff yet again, chapter select, trailer for this film that I've already talked about, and more hardcore trailers, of course. Okay, time for the case. Again, this one follows the format of the first case, this time adding a nose to the face on the front. I really do like the designs of these, it's so cool. It does kind of make it feel like something you shouldn't be holding or looking at. The back is also very similar, with the hard to make out list of what's featured in it. Very effective. Inside we have a slightly larger catalogue of other hardcore releases. I think this is the first time seeing this variation of it, and once again, this was a very important piece to me finding all the films in this collection. Overall again, much like the first one, it's difficult to talk about this film. It's not enjoyable, it's not meant to be enjoyable, but it is interesting. I found this one to be tighter and a heavier, more upsetting sit than the first film, but at the same time it feels a little slapped together in parts, and it does feel like it's retreading a lot of ground that we've already covered in the first film. I think I do prefer the first film. It's a little more shocking because you're going into it as a first film. If you saw this one first, you might prefer this one, but this is always going to be the sequel in my mind. The DLC, as I said earlier. It does kind of feel like an add-on, I guess. But if you want to watch Faces of Death and you want a shorter version of it, this might be the way to go. Realistically though, this is only going to speak to a certain sort of person. Someone who's into the Mondo shock docs, or their extreme horror, or just has a general fascination with death in general. If you're not one of those people, this film is not for you. If you are, you've probably already seen it, let's be fair. If you're in the market for this film, there's not a ton of options. This version isn't the worst. There is a US double bill with the first film. There's a few US imports, and there's a few German imports as well. This is your lot for the UK release of it. And honestly, it's kind of shot up in price a little bit, so it kind of depends what you deem worth the money, really. It's definitely a little fascination piece, but I don't know if it's worth much. I'd say if you see it for cheap, it's probably worth buying to then sell on, because it goes for, you know, more than you'd want to pay for it, I guess. I got lucky because I got it as a teenager. So, another fascinating, difficult film this episode. Hey up. Back for round 3 with another instalment into the Faces of Death series. We're taking a look this episode at Faces of Death 3, the third in the series, as you can imagine, from 1985, again directed by John Alan Schwartz, and again starring Michael Carr as Dr. Gross. As if 2 weren't enough, they had to make another one, didn't they? So I'm going to start this in the same way that I started the other 2 reviews. So firstly, if you haven't watched my Faces of Death 1 and 2 reviews, I'd highly recommend checking those out before watching this review, because there's going to be a lot of comparison between this and the other films, and you know, it'll keep you in the loop and stuff and make things make a bit more sense, I guess. Secondly as well, it's a Faces of Death film, and YouTube hates Faces of Death films, and I don't want this review to just disappear into the world and it can't be watched. So there's not going to be too many clips from this, I'm afraid, even though this one could probably have more clips shown. Unfortunately, I can't really show much of it, especially not the meatier stuff anyway, so it might be quite light on clips. So, the last one was a bit of a rough sit for me. I haven't seen this one before, I have no history with this one at all. So, I mean, I know what to expect because it's a Faces of Death film. I'm sure it's not going to blow me away or anything. I'm sure it's exactly what I'm envisioning. But I don't know the inner workings of it all. So, let's see if it's any good, shall we?
I view these remains, I can't help but reflect on the terrible accidents that cost the occupants of these motorized vehicles their lives. Those bleeding to death while frantically trying to save themselves from the twisted metal coffins.
I told him not to go out drinking or anything because that man was out there, the one who kills everybody.
No, I can't say nothing dirty about him, but I wished I could.
Following the same formula as the other two films, we once again take a look through Dr. Gross's archives, taking a look at various ways to die. In this instalment, we get things like bombings and slaughterhouses, diving accidents, murderers, etc., etc. This one's 84 minutes, so it's longer than the second one, but shorter than the first. But to me, this one felt like the longest. I just found it very, very dull to watch. The sort of shock value's gone by this point. I've already seen two others, the shock factor's gone, and there's other reasons why it's less shocking that we'll get into later. But also, it's not got the pacing that the others have. It takes its time on each topic, very slowly discussing it, and they all kind of overstay the welcome, if I'm honest. It's just a very, very boring, overly long Faces of Death film.
I really can't believe it. Honestly, I really can't believe it.
You scared of
Sitting here, you would think everything is peaceful and serene. But what you don't see is a 15-foot wall surrounding this property.
Dr. Gross is once again the sort of fun anchor of these films. He's got a lot of charisma and he's got some quite entertaining bits in this. He's definitely funnier than he was in Faces of Death 2, but he still is quite dry in this as well. His voice though, it still works really well for this type of film. I did notice though, however, that the quality of his voiceover changes quite drastically once or twice. So it starts off and it's the older sound recording quality, you know, it's slightly more muffled, and it sounds the same as Faces of Death 1 and 2. Then suddenly it popped and the voice sounded way clearer, and it was super jarring, especially because this is the third one in, and part way into it just sort of, here we go, and it was crisp and weirdly clear. And then at some point it must have changed back into the older style, because I felt it pop again later on in the film. I'm not too sure, maybe they recorded some stuff earlier, then recorded some stuff later on, I'm not sure. There's a bit of a gap between this and the second one, so it could have just been some was recorded earlier, some recorded later. I don't know, but it was pretty weird. So this film, it keeps some of its messaging that it tries to do. They try to have some sort of agenda, just so that they can get away with what they're showing, I guess. In this one, it's the animal cruelty stuff again. Doesn't like animal cruelty, fair enough, who does? But also, this one really doesn't like fast food and drugs. It's very anti-drugs, this one. It doesn't have the environmental message though, which was a staple for 1 and 2. Just sort of ignores that completely this time. It feels like the amount of death in this film is a lot less as well. It's a lot less than I was expecting anyway. So I complained in the second one that there are a lot of topics that are glossed over, and I did say though that it might have helped keep the pace for it, but it was a shorter film too. Now this film gets rid of those pretty much completely. Any topic that's brought up, we're seeing it for about 5 minutes, roughly. And you feel every topic drag on. Every topic goes on for a little too long, and it just drags and drags. And I realised I wished that there was some of the quicker topics, just to keep that pace going, just to keep it moving. But no, unfortunately, it really, really just drags along this film. So, fakeness. This has got to be the fakest one yet. There wasn't much footage in this that I felt was real, outside of like historical footage and stuff. And that is the complete opposite to Faces of Death 2, where there wasn't much in that I could point at as being fake. Faces of Death 3 is full of recreations, and most of them are absolutely stupid. Bad acting, weirdly good framing for something that should be so spur of the moment, spontaneous, and shouldn't have good framing. The blood is bright red for a lot of it. It felt like a giallo film, which kind of deters from what it's trying to achieve. It's trying to be as realistic. At least if you're gonna make something that's supposed to be real, why would you make your blood look like Dulux bright red paint? Ridiculous. But I think this is the first film in the Faces of Death series where I actually laughed aloud at one point. It was the guy on PCP in a police station. It was so faked. It was clearly fake. I think it's famously fake as well. I think there's some stuff online about that one being the fake one, and it is ridiculous. The acting is so shit, and it just goes on and on and on. I also laughed at another point. Now, this might be based on a true story. There might be some truth to it, but what we're seeing isn't real. It's about a parachuter who missed his mark and landed in an alligator pit. Now, it's the way it's edited. It cuts to these alligators eating clearly fake body parts, and it just... something about how the voiceover, then the interview cuts in, and then it just cuts these alligators eating fake legs. Oh, very, very silly. Honestly, as well, outside of this now, it's getting difficult to talk about these Faces of Death films. This is the third one that I've watched, pretty close together, and I don't really know what else to really say about these that I haven't already said a million times over in the other reviews. It's just more of the same. That's what it is. Slightly different tonally, I'd say, but just more of the same.
For the chronic PCP user, the person that uses at least 3 days per week for a minimum of 3 months, it may take anywhere from several months to several years until the person again returns to normal.
Take the medicine. No! Take the medicine. Take it all the way down. All the way down. All the way down.
Take some more.
All the way.
Right.
Now swallow it. Swallow it, Willie. Okay.
Billy, you see what you did?
Willie.
Towards the last half an hour of this film, it gets a little one-track minded, and it gets obsessed with diving accidents. No joke, there's about three different topics of diving accidents underwater in that last half an hour, and each of them, I think one of them takes about 10 minutes. They're all fake, they're all clearly fake footage, and it feels like the crew got an underwater camera and went, we need to make use of this underwater camera, so we just do a shit ton of diving accidents. Like getting killed by a barracuda, or getting killed by sharks, or getting trapped in an underwater cave, and it just goes on and on and on, and it's so boring. So dull, that bit. We also get a cameo from the director, John Alan Schwartz. He's playing a serial killer, and talk about going on a bit. This is set at a trial, his bit, and it just goes on and on and on. It's so dull, but interesting to see him there. So clearly that one's fake too. So there you go. The fakeness is definitely something I want to re-bring back up as well, because it adds a cheapness to this one that the other two, while they didn't feel like high budget or anything like that, they felt more documentary, I guess, so they get away with it. This one just feels super cheap. An example that really stood out to me was there's a guy jumping off a building, and as he's falling, cut to a different shot, and he's clearly a mannequin, and then there we go. It's like something from Zombie Holocaust. Do you know what it felt like? What was the name of that show? Was it 1,000 Ways to Die or Dumb Ways to Die? Something like that, from 2006. It felt more akin to that than anything else, which is, yeah, it's not great. So, we're at a bit of a point now. We've watched the first 3 Faces of Death films. There is another, but it's not until much later on, so we get a big gap now. So I'm going to take this time to compare. So, Faces of Death 1, it knew what it was doing, it was confident in what it was doing. It may be a little too long, but it had the shock value there, and it felt like a complete film, a whole piece. And it made for a pretty interesting watch, I'd say. It was fascinating to see. Faces of Death 2, short and effective. It felt a bit like DLC and a little rushed at times, but it elicited more of a response from me, I guess. And while not a great film, it was definitely like a rough watch, I'd say. Then we come to Faces of Death 3. And this one feels like an afterthought. This one feels like, well, the first one did well, and the second one did well in Japan, so we gotta do a third one. We gotta get another one out the door. And there's just far too much fakeness in it, and it goes on for far too long. And this one is unnecessary, unfortunately. Very boring, very dull watch. Lastly, before we move on IMDb, in the trivia section, it mentions a scene. It is the last public execution in France by guillotine. And I don't remember seeing that in this film at all, so I am assuming that that was removed. Now, this is a cut version of this film. According to the BBFC website, it's a scene of sexual violence that's removed, and I think it has something to do with the trial scene that has John Alan Schwartz in it. There's a big section of that that's removed. Doesn't say anything about the public execution or anything like that, but I didn't see it in it, and when I come to edit this and add clips in, I'll have a quick look through the film and see if I can find anything. I'm not going to re-watch the thing to see if I missed it, but I made notes on every topic that came up, unless it was shoved in at the credits at the end, because at the end it just shows really quick clips. It's like a clip where there's like naked people sat at a table eating lunch or something. It just churns through these clips. So maybe it was in that, but I watched that and I don't remember seeing it. I've made notes and there is nothing about the guillotine that I made a note on. So who knows? Who knows where that scene is? But why it's worth mentioning is that a young Christopher Lee is in the audience watching the public execution. He went to it. So technically, Christopher Lee is in this film.
Germany is the home of a special unit known as the Yellow Angels. These men patrol the autobahns throughout.
When the peaceful community of Castle Beach became a stage for a series of tragic murders of young teenage girls.
Okay then, time for the print. And why is it always the films that I will probably never watch again that have the best prints? Print for this one is pretty good, to be honest. It's in 4x3, which, I'm probably shot in 4x3, weren't I? But it's fine, clear picture, looks pretty good, sounds alright, can be a little echoey at times, and in a few shots the whites are a little blown out, but nothing major really. It's pretty good print. So yeah, not bad. And on the disc, very, very standard stuff this time. We get chapter select and hardcore trailers. That's your lot. Okay then, let's have a look at this case. We're carrying on with the same motif as the other two had. This time the colour scheme's been changed to blue and the top teeth have been added to the face. I really like this one still. I do just really like what they've done with these designs. I've said it in the other two reviews, I'll say it again. It's cool, it's a good design. The same can be said for the back as well, exactly the same sort of stuff, just lists out what is featured, although some of the things that are on the back of this aren't in this film at all, so I feel like it's more just copy and pasted stuff, to be honest. The runtime is out by quite a bit here. The film is actually 84 minutes, but it's listed here as 74, so 10 minutes out. Quite a big one really, we've not had one that big in a while. I'd guess that it was left over from the Faces of Death 2 template, because that was 74 minutes exactly, so I assume they just forgot to change it when they made the case for this one. Lastly, this also has a catalogue on the inside, but it's dropped down to the smaller one for some reason. Weird. Overall then, this is by far the weakest of the series yet. It's not fun, it's boring, it draws everything out, and most of it's faked. There's even a disclaimer at the end of the credits saying that most of it's faked. This is not worth your time. If you're gonna watch a Faces of Death film, watch 1 or 2. 1 for its historical context. 2 because it's probably the most effective of the ones that I've watched so far. Just avoid this one. This is only gonna speak to Faces of Death completionists out there. Most people aren't going to want to bother with it, to be honest. As far as releases go, this is your lot, really, in the UK, and it's fine, the print's pretty good, there's no special feature or anything like that, but it's not too bad. It has shot up in price, though. Now, I got lucky, and I still have my receipt from when I got this. And I only paid £5 for this from CEX in 2017. Now, that's still far too much money for this film. That it's still not worth that amount of money, to be honest. But it has shot up by quite a way, so I wouldn't recommend paying much for it. I think this is one of those where if you find it very, very cheap, it's probably worth getting. There's also some imports knocking about, there's some US imports, some German imports, but again, avoid it. I wouldn't bother with it, to be honest. Kind of a waste of time. It's probably all online anyway, just watch it online. So, not great. Hey up. So after quite a few diversions from the usual hard gore fare, we are heading back into more familiar territory. We're finishing off a series that we started back in Tier 1. We're looking at the last official and last original entry in the Faces of Death series. So of course, Faces of Death 4 from 1990. This is again directed by John Alan Schwartz, but this time going under the pseudonym Conan Le Siller for some reason, no idea why. Michael Carr does not reappear in this as Dr. Gross, and I wonder how much that's going to affect this one, to be completely honest. So yeah, part 4, here we are. By part 2, in fact, this Mondo Shock Doc series was already kind of losing its steam, in my opinion. And yeah, without Dr. Gross on top of it, I don't know, I'm not particularly optimistic about this one, let's say. Instead we get James Schwartz filling in as the narrator and guide for this film. He's obviously the brother of the director. But I mean, that's some pretty big boots to fill, as Michael Carr was a staple of the first 3, I'd say. So again, another one I've not seen. I don't know how much of this is fake, how much of this is just horrible real stuff. No idea whatsoever. And I will say as well before we start, as with the other 3 reviews, YouTube's not a fan of these films, so the clips in this might be a little scarce or just a little uninteresting. I can't really show you all the interesting stuff, because the interesting stuff is the stuff that will get me banned off YouTube. So there you go, expect a few less clips. But anyway, let's stop stalling and let's just crack on with this, shall we?
Hello, my name is Dr. Louis Flellis. I'm a neurosurgeon. It would seem the guidance system for this Trident missile could use a little guidance of its own.
I just don't understand it. We don't know what's happened yet. Back there? We don't know. I don't know anything until I can assure you there'll be a full investigation about this. This is the first time this has ever happened.
This one pretty much just carries on exactly like the rest of the Faces of Death films do. There's not much of a difference, really. The biggest difference probably being Dr. Louis Flellis as our new host. Canonically, Dr. Gross is dead in the Faces of Death universe now. For those who care, I don't know. In this instalment, we get plane crashes, cave-ins, bungee accidents, magic acts gone wrong, and one massive leech. That's just to name a few things that happen in this one. All being led along, narrated over by Dr. Flellis, who gives us his opinion every now and again. And every now and again we cut into him for a little live action skit that's kind of half funny sometimes. Yeah, it's, I complained in Faces of Death 2 that the sections were a little too rapid, a little too quick. And I complained in Faces of Death 3 that they went on for far too long. Well, in this one, it kind of gets the balance right. There are a few where it sort of churns through them, but then it slows itself down and explores a few ideas a little bit more. And the pacing's not too bad. A big problem, though, is that every time we do slow down to look at an idea, the longer that we're with it for, the faker it is, generally. The more there's like talking heads and things like that, you know it's getting into real fake territory, so that's a bit of a shame. And Dr. Gross's narration is sort of drier sense of humour, his weird quotes, they are missed in this one. Flellis, I don't know, he didn't really leave me wanting more of him, if that makes sense, whereas Dr. Gross was a bit of a fun character to stick around with. So yeah, I'd say that it's better than Faces of Death 3, but I'd say it's not as good as Faces of Death 2, and what really pushes Faces of Death 2 above 4 is it's only 75 minutes long, whereas Faces of Death 4 is 90 minutes, and yeah, again, you just get sort of sick of what you're watching because it's just the same thing over and over and over again, and it sort of loses its shock value after the first half an hour of just seeing dead bodies and horrible things happening to people. So yeah, not the worst though. The acting isn't great in this one, and I'm talking specifically about the acting here. So Dr. Flellis, he keeps bug-eyeing the camera a lot of the time, and yeah, I don't know, his delivery didn't really fit as well as Dr. Gross's did. And then in the more fake sections, they're very obviously fake, because the acting is pretty appalling a lot of the time. Some of the talking heads are just ridiculous with how bad the acting is. The gore seems to have took a little step up, I'd say. There are some scenes that just sort of worked with the gore and looked relatively effective. I'm thinking the car on the leg scene, that worked pretty well, and the beginning bit in the asylum. But then, to counterbalance that, we do get a lot of sections where the gore just looks absolutely terrible. I'm specifically thinking of the quartering section. That just looked awful, really, really bad. And there's a few other bits as well where, yeah, it's mixed. It's a mixed bag. Then on the real side of things, yeah, we get some difficult shots, some difficult bits to look at. It's mostly just like, you know, there's a lot of corpses in this, a lot of after the fact things. If it's a shot of just a corpse that's already dead, more than likely it's real. I think a lot of it was shot in a morgue as well, or a crematorium, because there's a lot of cremation sections as well. There's things like war crimes and war footage, the historical stuff that's never fun to watch because you know it's not faked. And then there's like an AIDS baby at the end, which is just, yeah, it's just sad. But then you counterbalance that with some really fake acting, or Dr. Flellis doing something a bit silly, and it does what the others do, where you suddenly start laughing, and then you're like, now I feel a bit weird because I'm laughing. Should I be laughing at this? I'm not fully sure. Yeah, it evokes the same emotion, I'd say, as the other ones do. So I guess validity of the real and the fake, I guess, as well. I'd say it's probably about 50-50, probably leaning more into the fake. As I said, the bigger sections are usually the fake ones. If we see somebody doing something and then die, it's fake. Whereas if we just see a quick shot after the fact, or something that looks historical, big crowds, more often than not, it's some sort of like stock footagey sort of thing, or some sort of like news footage, or like royalty-free stuff that you can get away with just sort of cramming in there. And that, yeah, they're usually real. And every time I do one of these, I get comments where it's like, well, it's all fake, it's all fake. The longer sections are, but a lot of this film is quite quick cuts of news footage, or like police footage, or stuff like that, like war footage and stuff, and those are real, a lot of it, and like the quick shots to the corpses and that, yeah, there's realness in that. Sure, there's fakeness, but there's realness. You're not faking a plane crash for Faces of Death 4, are you? I mean, come on, where's the budget for that coming from? So yeah, I'd say it's about 50-50, this one, with the fake and the real. But yeah, so I think let's finish this off with something fun. The music to this film is... well, the score is maddening because it's quite repetitive and it plays over and over and over again, and yeah, it gets a bit annoying. But this is the film where the Faces of Death song that I mentioned, I can't remember if it was in 2 or 3, but the Faces of Death song plays in this one, and it is in this one because apparently Dr. Flellis, or what was his name, James Schwartz, he is the writer and he sings the song as Dr. Flellis, so it's his song that he wrote about it, and it plays over the credits. And honestly, this film gets a little extra tick just for having this song in it over its credits. It's pretty fun.
But the death of those musicians inspired me to resume playing the piano, which I hadn't done since I was a small boy. But I knew the music had to go on. This song that I wrote is dedicated to those musicians.
You only find faces of death, faces of death, faces of death all around you. Faces of death, faces of death, faces of death all around you.
So as soon as we're wrapping up this Faces of Death series, I thought now would be a good time to do just a little comprehensive history of the films and some of the stuff that we've not directly discussed, adding that in and making a little timeline of it all. So, Faces of Death 1 to 3, we've already discussed those, they came out. After those, we got a compilation film called The Worst of Faces of Death, again directed by John Alan Schwartz, and this is a compilation of Faces of Death 1 to 3. The idea being they get in all of the most extreme bits and push it out there, and this time it had James Schwartz in it. Again, Michael Carr wasn't involved. And this sort of served as a bit of advertising for Faces of Death Part 4, both coming out in the same year, 1990, they both came out. Well, Worst of Faces of Death came out in 1990. Faces of Death 4 came out in 1990 in Germany, but due to some sort of legal battle, I think it was something to do with the opera house scene at the end, which is a real scene of an opera house stage floor collapse, and you've probably seen it before if you watch like YouTube like horror stuff. Yeah, and then Faces of Death 4 got released everywhere on VHS in 91 officially. So you had these 5 films come out. As I said, Michael Carr refused. He'd already retired, you see. Faces of Death 3 was actually his last acting credit, and he'd retired, so he refused to come back for Part 4 and for The Worst of. But instead you've got James Schwartz filling in as Dr. Flellis, and he was also in Faces of Death 3. He played the guy that's trying to jump off the building at one point. So after that you have a little break, and then in 95 and 96 we get Faces of Death 5 and Faces of Death 6. Both of these though are just compilations of the first 4 films. Again, they're directed by John Alan Schwartz, going under his pseudonym of Conan, what was it again? Conan Le Ciliere or something. Conan Le Ciliere, I think it is. Not sure why he decided to go under the pseudonym after releasing like 4 films with his name attached. That's including the worst of Faces of Death. Yeah, so we got 2 compilations there. They're sort of unofficial as well, I guess. They didn't really have the backing that the other ones did. And it was an excuse of just trying to get the best bits from the first 4 films and releasing them in countries that had banned the films previously. It was just a way to try and get into the market, because obviously like things had changed over like 15 years, however long it was since the first one. So I think he was just trying again just to get it out there for other countries. Faces of Death 7 then came out, and this is just a re-edited version of another Mondo film called Death Scenes by Nick Borges, I don't know if I've said that right, and is hosted by Anton LaVey. So that was an unofficial Faces of Death 7. Then we got another Faces of Death 7, which is just a compilation of shock videos and gore films found online, and then somebody just did this again and released Faces of Death 8, and yeah, it's just more gore, more stuff that you'd find online, no narration, no through line or anything like that, just a bunch of death scenes put together and unofficially released online. So there we go, that's the 8 films that exist. Then in 2001, I think it was, there was rumours about a remake. As of 2024, filming has wrapped on this remake, just called Faces of Death, and it will star Barbie Ferrier, don't know if I've said that right, from Nope, Dacre Montgomery from Stranger Things, and Charlie XCX the musician, and apparently it's going to centre around a group of people finding snuff films on YouTube. I don't know, man. I think that sounds awful. Honestly, I think it sounds cheap and lazy and just a cash in on the name. But you know what? Morbid curiosity will strike and I will see it, especially if it gets a cinema release. If you're interested in hearing about my thoughts on that film when it does come out, let me know. Maybe I'll make a little review about it or something. But I don't think I'm going to be going into the other films in this series because they're either unofficial, nothing to do with the original people, or just compilations. So I think we can round it off there. That is the sort of little mini history on Faces of Death. Let's move on.
The water and the forces of darkness that called to her.
There's something suspicious going on all the time. You've seen strange cars come and go in all hours of the night. Different things happening. It just didn't seem regular for this neighborhood.
Okay, let's crack out the Gorometer and check to see how much this fits into the Hard Gore series, shall we? So let's start with question 1. Any branding on the outside of the case? There is not, surprisingly. Not a mention of Hard Gore anywhere on the outside of this case, which is weird because the other ones do have it, even just like the little website at the bottom, but no, not this time. Number 2, any Hard Gore branding on the inside of the case? Though we don't get an inside of the case in this one. No catalogue or anything like that. Just a white, blank inner. So, no to that one as well. Number 3, any branding on the disc, physically or digitally. Physically, we get the Hard Gore website, weirdly. Even though it's not on the case, it is on the disc. And digitally, it also gets a little weird. On the main menu, the icon for looking at the other trailers is a little screaming Hard Gore face. Clicking on that though, the menu for the trailers it doesn't have any of the Hard Gore branding, but we still get a little guy and we still get the website on the disc, so it gets a point for that one. Number 4, is it hard? Is it gore? Of course it is. We've already had the other 3 films in Tier 1, so this is right at home. If this was just released as a Hard Gore film, I'd be much happier. It'd appease my brain a little better because I've got the other 3 in Tier 1, you know, but oh well. So yeah, definitely, it is hard and it is gore. Lastly, is there any other outside evidence? Now, you might think this is a stretch, but I am going to go with this. Yes, the fact that the case carries on the style of the other 3. and adds another body part and things like that. Excuse me. I think that that is enough evidence, really, to say that it was part of that collection. Like, it could have had a completely different style, but it doesn't. It has exactly the same. So there's that, and also we have seen in catalogues this one mentioned, and it's usually put alongside the other 3 films, and the other 3 films then don't have the branding. So I don't know, it feels like a little set. So I'm going to give it a point for that anyway. So we are ending this this Gorometer session with a 3 out of 5, meaning maybe hardcore. Honestly, I expected it to be a little higher, because I feel like it really does fit into the hardcore collection, but a lack of branding on the outside and inside, it does fall short in some ways. I honestly thought this was going to be the one that was the closest, but yeah, no, it misses out on a few things. It is pretty close, don't get me wrong, but yeah, it just misses the mark. I'd like to know what you think. This was a tricky one to grade, to be completely honest, as well, because it does just feel like it should be part of the hardcore collection. But yeah, it'd be nice to hear what you guys think about this one anyway.
My work with mental patients has convinced me that video games, pinball games, and controlled physical contact reduces aggression. The same theory does not hold true in a world gone mad.
An unusually large leech had attached itself to Nancy's arm. The responding officer mistakenly thought cutting the creature would kill it.
Okay then, time for the print, and it's not good, to be honest. It might be one of the worst ones that we've looked at in Tier 2 so far, to be honest. It's 4x3 and it's blurry and very soft looking. We get VHS flickers every now and again, and the main issue is that every now and then it'll slow down and everything will get deep and slow, and then it'll jump back into speeding up and go really fast. Everyone's talking really high pitched. It feels like there's like a tracking issue. It's clearly a VHS strip. I think it was only really released on VHS, and I'm guessing, yeah, it's a tracking issue with the VHS player that they were using to rip the footage. Yeah, it's not great. And right at the end as well, something weird is that the Gorgon Films advert plays right at the end, and that's the company that put this out in the States on DVD, and it's just got static noise in the background. And I mean, I'm a fan of Merzbow, so I didn't mind it, but I'm sure most people would just be quite annoyed if suddenly loud static noise is playing briefly. It just seems really weird and obnoxious. I don't know if they removed the audio and just put static in there, I'm not fully sure. It's weird either way. And on the disc, we just get the usual stuff, really, you know. We get the film, we get chapter select, and we get some trailers. That's your lot.
Across the street from us.
The man who ordered death like most of us order a
sandwich is having a wonderful time at the party. Anybody who's got a window in their house saw a drug deal
going down across the street there. Right in front of the house. We saw it over and over.
Okay then, time for the case. Once again, it's sticking with the ever-growing face, and yeah, I've already said before, I really like it. I also like that they're all different colours as well. There's something nice to just differentiate between them all. And this one is a nice way to cap it off with the bottom jaw being added. It's a good job they didn't bother releasing 5 and 6, because they'd have had to keep adding to this face, and what you're doing next, ears and hair or something. But yeah, it's nice. The back of the case again lists off terrible things featured in the film, and while I do still like this style, it's unfortunately exactly the same list as the one on the back of Faces of Death 3. 1 to 3 they were all different, but I guess with this one they just said fuck it and just reused the last one that they had for it. Seems really lazy. Outside of that though, the runtime's correct, and yeah, it's not too bad a case, honestly. Overall then, it's another Faces of Death film. It's not the worst of the lot by any means, but it's not the best one either. To be honest, this series of films sort of started losing me after the first one, really. And yeah, it's never really picked back up that much for me. It's better than the third one. The third one was a little too slow and boring, whereas this one does manage to keep its pace, but it is going to sit behind the second one. Mainly because it's 90 minutes, which is a little too long for this sort of film for me, and the absence of Dr. Gross doesn't help things at all, unfortunately. Yeah, I'd only recommend this to Faces of Death completionists, and if that is you, you've probably already seen it, to be completely honest. But it's only really going to be for the ones who really want to tick them all off, basically. If you are in the market as well, this version's not great, but it looks like it's the Gorgon print, so if you're going to import the DVD, it's probably the exact same. If you are going to buy it, don't buy it as expensive as it currently is online. Try and find it cheap somewhere, because this has shot up in price. I think it's a bit of a rarity, to be honest. I think there's like some sort of weird bootleggy Blu-rays where it has all 4 films on one disc. That's probably your best way to go, because that is a cheaper option of getting all 4 of the films in one. But yeah, I don't know, I wouldn't particularly bother with it really. It's not the best anyway. So yeah, glad I got that one ticked off. Not the worst in the series, but not the best either. So there we have it, the 4 Faces of Death. Watched, reviewed and ranked. It'd be nice to know what you guys think of this sort of format. Do you like it when I combine some of my older videos, making it a bit easier to find like a topic that you want to see me discuss? Let me know in the comments, because I can always make more of these for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.